Hello, welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Fiona Carswell. I'm Manaaki Whenua's Chief Scientist. I have a background in researching native forest restoration, regeneration and carbon sequestration in indigenous forests.
Fiona, planting trees is good fun. Communities get into it, kids love doing it. But planting is not the only thing we need to do to restore native forests. Can you tell us about what else has to happen if we are to see a restoration of our native ngāhere?
So as people, we love to plant trees because it makes us feel like we're doing something really active. In Manaaki Whenua, we believe that natural regeneration is also a very active process. So what we can do as people is steward that process. We can take action to make sure that nature can heal itself through natural regeneration. We think it's going to be much more effective at big scales, landscape scales, and you're not going to have to pay for every single tree that's coming up in that process.
What are the key elements for managing that regeneration?
You really have to prevent disturbance as far as you can. So that means preventing fire as far as you're able. It means controlling browsing animals, whether that's stock or wild animals such as goats, pigs, deer. They're the big ones. And excluding the problem weeds. So where you've got a problem species in there, you really need to get rid of it, like Pinus contorta. That is a real kind of enemy to that process.
How long does it take for pasture to regenerate?
So we advocate build on what's naturally happening. So if there's no evidence of any indigenous seedlings at all, chances are it's not going to happen fast at all. So we say look for the places where nature's telling you it's primed for this process. Look for little seedlings coming up in the grass, kānuka, manuka, maybe tauhinu. These things coming up in the grass tell you it wants to turn back into forest. Where you've got that, it'll go through grassland with those things in 10 years and then into a mixed sort of thing, 10 to 20 years. Short indigenous forest, maybe 50 years, and then tall is 75 years onwards. So that's where all the conditions are right. It can definitely be much slower than that in hard places.
There's a lot of excitement about the transition of exotic trees to native forests. What has to happen for that to occur?
Transitioning from exotic forest to native forest is really a science in its infancy. Because it's going to take several decades, the research hasn't yet run that proves what the right interventions are to pull it through. Anybody can turn a pine forest into a coprosma forest. The trick is turning a pine forest into a tawa forest, a rimu forest, a beech forest. That is the part that requires the active research. How do you get it into a tall forest? And the same limits can apply to natural regeneration. Sometimes they stop at that short indigenous forest too. And so they're both live areas for research currently.
Does Manaaki Whenua have a point of view about how landowners could be rewarded for restoring native forest? For instance, something like a biodiversity payment.
I think at the moment, there's definitely a premium on a carbon unit that's coming from a permanent indigenous forest. The market's already providing an incentive. What the problem is that there are too many barriers to get in, and there's too much coming down to an individual landowner, too much cost, too much measurement for the individual. What matters is that people don't have costs to participate. If it's easy for us to participate, then we just need to have the right carbon value at a national scale. And that is the way to make a really efficient system that incentivises participation. Because people are going to get a premium on that carbon unit on the naturally regenerating hill slope, regardless of their exact carbon number.
So what does a good future of land use look like in New Zealand?
A good future looks like a diversified landscape. So We must protect highly productive soils so that we can grow food on them. We would continue to do dairy on the lands that are suited for it, but we would take some of the very marginal lands and use them to weave that resilience and the biodiversity buffers in amongst those productive landscapes. And we would look to what are the non-extractive ways to support that, like honey production in places, like ecotourism in places.
What's on your wish list, Fiona? What would you like landowners to be doing?
I'd love them to really look at how to get big areas of land changing towards indigenous forest in a way to remove barriers for people to participate in that land use change.